Feeling stuck? Thinking there's too much to do and you don't know where to start with your big goal? Telling yourself you can't start until you feel clear or confident and calm? What if I told you there's a way to act inside that feeling of overwhelm instead of trying to make it disappear? And in today's video, I'll walk you through a few simple things you can do to keep moving. That'll look like defining overwhelm, how it shows up for you, and what you can do so that you don't spiral into complete giving up. And it's not about pushing harder, but rather working with where your body and your mind are right now. So, overwhelm is just going to be part of the goal, just like resistance was, what we talked about in video two. And overwhelm can feel like just stating that you feel overwhelmed, but it also might come up as I'm too busy, I don't know what to do, there's too many choices. For me, it often shows up like I need to do more research. And always it seems to be laced of a little bit of self-pity and also my urge to run and do something, anything else but what I've got on hand. And I just want to remind you that these kind of feelings coming up with these big goals is absolutely normal. It doesn't mean what something's going wrong. And it often means that your goal is big enough. These things are coming up. It's also your brain's normal response when there seems to be a lot of options and a lot of decisions to make. Remember, our brain likes things to be convenient, easy, and not that taxing. And when we give it something new to do, we're basically asking it to make a choice, make a decision about something it doesn't really know much about. So let's say you haven't necessarily voiced or heard the thought in your head, I'm feeling overwhelmed. A lot of times it'll show up in your body first. And if you're paying attention, you might notice that cue first. For me, overwhelm shows a lot up like a tight jaw or kind of a racy pulse, and my chest will feel tight. And I can promise you this happens just about every time I stand up here and try to do a video. And again, that cue can indicate to you like, hey, my body's feeling a little out of whack here. And it can give you a moment to kind of address the physical response. So then it can lead to having a calmer mental response. So things like taking a big breath, and honestly, 3 breaths can do it. Giving yourself some physical contact, even if it's just your own hand on your chest, doing some brief movement. Before I started recording this video, I went around the block just to give myself a change of scenery and get myself mentally ready. Your body and brain are linked, and sometimes if you can address what's going on in your body first, that'll have a natural impact on calming your mind. So let's say you've had that breath, you've calmed your body, and I want to suggest that language is your next lever. So if you are still noticing thoughts like, I'm feeling really stressed, I'm really busy, again, these aren't wrong, but they're not exactly neutral. And language can really introduce a lot of unnecessary drama. So for me, this will often look like, I'm going to get behind this phone and start recording and not sound natural or stumbly and unbelievable. When actually, if I can take a moment before I start recording and remind myself, like, hey, you're going to be fine. You've recorded lots of videos and you have a message you want to share. And that feeling you have in your body isn't necessarily anxiety. It's just activation, maybe excitement. Again, I'm not trying to resist the feeling that I'm showing up with, but rather just take a moment to pause and soften it. Now, if I can't talk myself down and the overwhelm is still looping, that's when I'll go to paper. I'll take a moment to sit down and just separate the facts from the story I'm telling myself. So the facts are that I have a video I want to record. I have an hour and a half to do that. And I need to, I want to share this information with a viewer. The drama is I don't think I sound like I know what I'm talking about. I won't have enough time. I'll have to keep re-recording. And again, just as a reminder, the facts are that something that we can all agree on, the math, and the rest of it is just the thoughts you're telling yourself. Again, this isn't to punish yourself, but it might at least get it out of your head and onto paper. That's the effect it often has for me. And it allows you to see the kind of things that are really coming up for you. If you look at those thoughts, you can maybe start to like attack them logically and disband them, or at least allow yourself to know what you need to coach towards, which is, again, the point of these whole big goals. Another tactic you might consider is using constraint, as it can create momentum. Now, what I mean by that is that overwhelm kind of relies on too many options, too many decisions, too many choices. And so your brain kind of short circuits. And so, what constraint can offer are some perimeters and guardrails around your goal so that you're not making decisions in real time, especially if that's the kind of thing that might trigger overwhelm, as it does for me. So, for example, for my YouTube channel, when I started making videos, I made some pre-decisions. I decided I would always record in this back room because the light was good and I could shut the door. I would always use my phone to record. I didn't have another option anyway, and that I would always wear the color black. Now, I understood that this would remove kind of that decision fatigue in the moment. And I also understood that there's going to be times when I didn't want to do that, when it was time to film. My brain would argue about a different color or something like that. And so part of the way that constraint works is by supporting yourself through that decision. You're going to let your brain know, like, yeah, I know, we've already taken care of that. And that kind of consistency will provide reassurance. And it also builds that muscle up of being able to follow through with something even when you don't feel like it. And that actually feels great. It increases your self-trust, and that self trust doesn't come from forcing yourself or talking to yourself harshly. Rather, it comes in how you treat yourself when maybe things are down. Sure, you can white knuckle through resistance and you might even be able to fulfill some tasks, but it's just not sustainable or much fun. I find if I can approach myself when things haven't gone the way I wanted them to, or I'm feeling a lot of resistance or overwhelm, and I'm kind and compassionate, playful, and maybe a little bit firm, I'm much more likely to keep going. And that consistency is really what's going to move things along. And it just feels better in general. Those days that I didn't make it to the gym and practice for my pull up didn't mean that I should just give up the goal altogether. Rather, I reminded myself that I had the willingness to keep trying and I didn't have to do it perfectly. Then you're going to be able to miss a day without shaming yourself, without making it mean anything about your self worth or whether your goal's worthwhile. You're going to build that sense of follow through when you don't feel like doing anything. And then when you do mess up and you don't do it, how you talk to yourself. Even if you do all of these tips, you're going to still feel some days when you just don't feel motivated. You really find it hard. And in this next video, we'll talk about some ways to keep that motivation alive, particularly if you've had a few mishaps and you're not sure what to do next. So stay tuned for that video. It'll be here when it's ready. See you then.